So City Skylines 2 developers have asked players to be less toxic. And I don't disagree that gamers in general should probably be less toxic. I mean, it is a very toxic sector of the world. Like, sport fans and gamers are probably two subsets of the most toxic people on the planet. So I get where they're coming from. It would be nice to get advice about your game without it being, filled with a bunch of slurs. I understand why they feel this way, but let me just say, asking players to be less toxic is a horrible idea when your game released in a horribly broken state. The City Skylines 2 charged full price for this game, and it lacks so much content, and it also just can't run on like any system you give it. Like, you could put this game on a supercomputer and it would still lag. The game is limited to 60 FPS, but that doesn't really matter because you'll never see that number. I have a 4090 and a Ryzen 7950X, and this game chugged, okay? And once I hit a certain population number, this game would literally start breaking. The simulation would actually just start slowing down. Like, my frames would be fine, but cars in the road would slow down and people would slow down because the game literally couldn't keep up with calculating the movements of all these different, like, AI. It was seriously released in an extremely broken state, especially when you compare the first game, which ran super well. Like, the first game, besides the egregious, like, DLC prices, was really good. And it ran super well. One of the things that people loved about the first game was that it could run on, like, literally anything. Like, somehow they made this city builder run on, like, pretty much any system, which doesn't sound super crazy, but any game that has a bunch of little individual AI running around uses a lot of resources. Like, Total War, for example, also has a similar problem. Big battles start lagging for people, but it's not the end of the world. It's not, like, a huge deal. That game has a lot of other issues that I'm not going to get into in this video. But in general, games that have a lot of AI moving around independently are going to have, like, more lag. So it was impressive that they got the first game to run that well. And the second game came out, and it was the complete opposite. Like, for some reason, this game, like, renders in teeth actively, even though you never see it. But asking your player base to be less toxic after you release a broken game is a pretty big ask, I'm gonna be honest. Like, people spent good money to play this game, and they were promised something that just isn't there. And it's not like they were upfront about the issues at all. Like, it was a full price game, fully released. This wasn't early access. And ultimately, it was probably the publisher's fault this game got pushed out so soon, and I doubt the devs really had a choice. So I feel bad for them in that regard. But it's also kind of like, what do you expect, dude? You released a broken game that cost full price, and people are pissed about it. Like, if your game can't run well with a 4090 and, like, a top-of-the-line CPU, the game is bad. The gameplay might be fantastic, but if I can't play it, it's bad. I mean, Starfield had a similar problem, too. The game came out, everyone was getting bad frame rates, and Todd Howard was like, no, guys, it's not the game, it's your computer, you gotta upgrade. And then modders found out that it was the game, and it was just unoptimized, and then a week later, they patched it. Like, I'm not saying being toxic is right or okay, I'm just saying it makes sense. They also said that they're gonna consider pulling back engagement as a strategy to avoid toxicity, and, like, yeah, that's probably what you should do. And I know players are gonna be like, we want transparency, though, and they don't, because every time they get transparency, they complain. Like, there is a reason Sean Murray at Hello Games was like, okay, guys, we're not going to talk to them at all. We're just going to release patches. They will get it when they get it. And it worked. The game is in a good state now, and people are not pissed at Sean Murray anymore, but people are also worried that the next game is going to be the same thing as No Man's Sky, and I hope it's not. But that strategy literally worked. And that's probably just what they should do, because not only is City Skylines 2 having issues, you see, Pardaox Interactive is the maker of City Skylines 2, and they also have a lot of games. All of their new titles are bad. They all have these massive glaring issues that are barely being addressed. I think it's like also why people are pissed. Pretty much all the releases in the last like 2-ish years are mixed or negative, besides Age of Wonders, which like I tried and honestly not really my thing. It's like Civ with more story and less like economy and war. And I like economy and war, so not really into it. But if you like more story-oriented, like Civ kind of stuff, it's a good game. But anyways, the point is, Pardaox Interactive has had a bad track record for the last little bit, and I think people are just generally kind of annoyed. And rightfully so. Like, you're paying full price for these games, and they're releasing completely broken, when nothing about it being broken is, like, conveyed to you. It's not like they're like, hey, guys, it's gonna be early access, and it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be a rough game, okay? You're gonna have to endure it. They didn't tell you that. They marketed it as like a complete game that is finished, that has really cool things like actual accidents and better AI pathing, which also is not that good, by the way. I don't know who at City Skylines programmed the cars, but like, oh my God, drivers in real life are not this bad. Like, don't get me wrong, they're horrible, but no one's gonna cut across highways as often as they do in this game. I'll see if I can find a clip, but basically they'll be on like a freeway and they'll just like turn around on the freeway. Nobody does that. And before someone in the comments goes like, well, actually, yeah, I know somebody does. I'm sure one guy did it. A couple guys did it. That's not the point. It's not fun to manage traffic that has no rhyme or reason. I'm playing a video game. I'm not engineering actual traffic stuff, okay? But yeah, asking players to be less toxic is just gonna make them more toxic, I'm sorry to say. I understand why they don't like people being toxic. It's not productive at all, I agree. They're not likely to listen to you by being toxic. It's not helping players either. People are just frustrated, understandably so. It also doesn't help that Pardaox games are like really expensive usually down the line. People are probably pretty aware in how much they're gonna start charging for stuff in this game, and it just doesn't really look great. Like, they released a broken game that has a lack of content, and you also can't run it even on top of the line systems, and the previous game DLC total cost was like $350. So if you're a fan of the first game and you have the mindset that you're gonna be paying like $400 down the line to play the DLCs, or if you bought the first game and all the DLC, I definitely see why people would be pissed. Like, if you bought the first game and all the DLCs for the first game, your mindset is probably like, wow, my $400 did nothing. And they're probably also thinking, how is it all these people spent all this money for the first game and the second one is doo-doo? And this game launched in October. And since then, I have not seen a real patch notes for like actually fixing the performance issues. There's been a few patch notes here and there, but nothing that actually fixes the issues. I figured they would have had something by now, if I'm being honest, because I assumed it was kind of like an easier fix, but I guess it's a lot deeper of an issue. And another issue that actually makes all the other issues I've talked about earlier even worse is the fact that this game does not have modding support. The first game had a lot of modding support. That game was heavily modded, and a lot of modding fixed the game. City Skylines is more like a base for people. A lot of people who play this game like it vanilla, but a pretty big subset of the community likes really complicated traffic stuff, and a lot of mods give that to them. So for some players, mods are the only way that they can play this game because that's the experience they want. And there's not many like city builders out there. Like, this is kind of it. There's a few others. There's one that's like a Russian Soviet thing. That one's pretty interesting, but it's also really complicated. I can't get into it. I need to like dedicate time to like learn that game. It's not like the most complicated thing in the world, but it's just a lot of information and a lot of stuff to do, and I wasn't looking for that experience. I wanted to build roads and absurd highways. That's what I wanted. But for the people who want a really custom experience with City Skylines, I see why they want modding really badly, and honestly, if they just allowed modding, they'd probably just fix the game for them. I don't know what it is about modders, but modders just figure the thing out and fix it, and there's like almost no drama about it. Like, I really don't understand how there was a mod for Starfield NVIDIA DLSS before the actual game. I don't understand how that happened. I know that the Bethesda engine is ancient, and anybody who's modded a Bethesda game before probably knows what they're doing in the newer ones, but still, very impressive they had a DLSS mod before the game actually put it in themselves. And I feel like if they had modding support for City Skylines 2, people would just release a patch the day after that would fix all the performance issues. Like, a modder would release that patch. I don't know. They do crazy things sometimes. I don't get it either. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see if they actually fix this game. I hope they do. I'm hyped to play it once they do. But until then, I'm just gonna go play Total War or something, or maybe Pal Worlds. That game looks cool. I'm actually probably gonna play that. A video on Sput about that probably soon. If you don't know what Sput is, it's the gaming channel that has no uploads yet. If you want to be like the first person to see something on there, just go subscribe, because it has like 500 subscribers or something. Hey, 0 videos. So I'll link it down below if you want to subscribe to it. But thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Click the answer down, check out more of my content, like, subscribe, if you're new, and have a good one.